The greatest beer run ever is the perfect summer movie.
Ta-da! Tricky?
You're going over there to defend the United States of America. How could that possibly not be the right thing to do?
The greatest beer run ever is the perfect summer movie. Not because the film happens to be set in the late summer of 1967. I mean, of course, that helps, but because it encapsulates all of the best parts of summer visually and thematically. It's a sweaty, swashbuckling, dramatic, coming-of-age story that contains just so much beer. I mean, what more do I even really have to say?
Sorry, they're a little warm. That is good.
I love seasons. Like most people, I like to distinctly separate them with different decorations, food, music, and media. Schlocky 80s horror movies don't hit the same in late April. A steaming hot bowl of French onion soup isn't super appealing in August, and for me at least, 70s classic rock doesn't get me going in December the same way it does on the 4th of July. Unless it's Bob Seger. That guy rocks year-round.
This right here is my favorite thing ever. In the history of forever. I think about this every day. I think about this all night long. I stay awake, not sleeping, because I'm thinking about this.
Everything has a time and a place where it hits the strongest, which is why I love watching the greatest beer run ever during the dog days of summer, and I think you might too. Sure, the movie is set in November technically, but let's just move past that, alright? We're building the foundation of this video on the rule of cool, okay? And what's cooler than a guy traveling around the world in the middle of one of the bloodiest conflicts in human history just to deliver some beers to his homeboys? I mean, come on. What's more summertime than that? But I'm getting ahead of myself. Visually, this movie is hot, and I don't mean that like in a sexy hot way just because Zac Efron is the lead actor. I mean, obviously it is because he is, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the presentation of Vietnam being oppressively humid. This film just does such a fantastic job creating a uniquely relatable summertime atmosphere, primarily by focusing on its less appealing parts. Everyone is profusely sweating, and they all look like they smell so bad. There isn't a clean shirt to be found in this film. It's all pit stains and greasy hair everywhere you look. The heat is inescapable. Even for the great American military, there's a very clear choice to depict a realistic 60s summer in Vietnam, and it feels fully realized because you never hear a character complain about it. Not once do you get an out of place, "Damn, it's really fucking hot over here" from Zac Efron. This is their normal, and the filmmakers allow the historical context of this world to inform the environment and the wardrobe choices in every single frame. All the windows are open, and there's a bunch of those 60s fans, you know the ones I'm talking about, that look like when they're spinning they would chop your fingers off if you're dumb enough to put your hand in one. All the drinks have so much condensation on the outside, and they're making rings on every table and all the bars, and even the titular beer that Chicky is delivering isn't appealing because it immediately got super warm, but nobody really cares about that though. Beer is beer and war is hell.
Guess what? This screwy friend just came 10,000 nautical miles to deliver your ass a sudsy thank you card.
And it isn't just the interior environment. Outside of beautifully portraying the weather in Vietnam as realistically uncomfortable, the color palette of this film is filled with warm tones and burnt colors. For example, we see multiple scenes of napalm being dropped onto the Vietnamese wilderness, which juxtaposes these deep, luscious greens with aggressive waves of white, hot flames. The color palette here is intentionally designed to feel gross and off-putting. As far as I'm concerned, it reinforces the anti-war sentiment that the film is pushing. What we were doing there was gross and uncomfortable and invasive, which is why the visual language of the film subtly makes you feel that exact same way. But a film's atmosphere isn't just made up of the visuals alone. This thing just so happens to also have a banging soundtrack that pairs perfectly with a summertime bonfire or barbecue. And I'll admit, my depth of knowledge when it comes to international classic rock from the 60s is shallow at best, but I do know a strong vibe curation when I see it. Every song in this soundtrack is expertly picked to engulf you in this feeling of tumultuous melancholy only a summertime adventure can provide. The music is truly the most underrated aspect of what makes the flavor of this film so engaging and nostalgic for me personally. Aside from all the military propaganda stuff that's going on, thematically a lot of this film is about personal growth and change, which historically is a narrative device directly tied to the summer season. Except the greatest beer run ever bucks that cliche just a tiny bit. Traditionally, a summer coming-of-age story is told from the perspective of a child or a teenager, i.e. Stand By Me, but here Zac Efron's character Chicky is a grown-ass man. At the start of the film, he's a lazy, naive drunk who's effectively done nothing of substance with his life but toe the line and party with his buddies. He's honestly a very relatable character in that way. I myself can't really claim to be that much different from him. He's a chill dude, he's personable, he's high-spirited, he's got a bunch of really good qualities, but despite all that, he's perfectly content to also completely waste his free time and is routinely shown to be deeply unreliable. He isn't a bad guy by any means, he's never hurt anyone, he loves his friends and family, and he is shown to be capable of fleeting introspection at times.
Stop, man! What are you doing? Those candles represent soldiers who were killed in Vietnam!
Oh. Sorry, I thought they were peace candles.
His greatest sin when the movie begins, outside of just kind of being one of those guys who doesn't pay his bar tab, is how much of the American military complex Kool-Aid he's drinking. He feels very passionately about the virtues of this war when the movie kicks off. He is willing to yell at family members or get into fistfights with protesters without really knowing anything of substance about what's actually happening. He has no real interest in learning the truth of the Vietnam War and is far more content to allow blind nationalism to define his values and beliefs, to the point where he naively convinces his best friend who's on the fence about Vietnam to go over and fight, not knowing the weight of his words until it's far too late. I mean, how could you not relate to this movie during summertime? How much misplaced American perfectionism do we have to sit through every July with Trump in office? How many people do you know who are willing to ruin an entire family get-together yelling about trans people or the COVID vaccine who you know haven't read a fucking book since elementary school? All right. I think I might be projecting a little bit here, but I think you get what I'm saying.
Jesus.
Chicky Donahue is representative of that type of person, someone you know has a good heart but is deeply, crushingly naive. As the film goes on and Chicky's adventure in Vietnam continues, he proves himself to be quick-witted, capable, and emotionally open. By the time the movie is over, while not a completely changed man, his perspective on the world, war, and the human condition have been forever altered. Sounds to me like a relatable summer theme. That's not staying in.
Smuggling beer into a war zone? That's not the smartest thing I've ever heard of. It's certainly not the worst either.
And if all of that hasn't at least piqued your interest a little, there's one more pretty massive aspect of the film that I've somehow overlooked up to this point, one that really cements it, in my view, as a summertime classic. Beer. The greatest beer run ever has a deep affinity for beer and what it represents. It's the simple rituals people use to connect with one another. A simple beer can carry so much subjective meaning that it becomes the perfect narrative device for an adult summertime adventure. Drinking a ton of beer in the winter is sad. Drinking a ton of beer by the lake is awesome. I don't make the rules, and this movie understands that. For Chicky, his friends, and the service members he meets, the lukewarm PBR represents camaraderie, friendship, community, relief, laughter, and escapism. But alcohol simultaneously represents stagnation, a crutch, a distraction, or a barrier to growth. That tension is what makes this film feel so relatable to someone like me, and I think someone like you, especially to anyone who has spent their 20 20s chasing the idea of the perfect summer. As a Midwestern boy myself, I spend all winter fantasizing about day drinking with my friends and family at our lake house. Sometimes that image is the only thing that gets you through some of those long nights buried in the snow. But when summer actually arrives, alcohol can be far more detrimental than the fantasy ever accounted for. The idea of sharing a beer with your closest friends is genuinely special, but the reality of drinking usually doesn't live up to that ideal. The beers in this movie exemplify that gap between fantasy and reality. Whenever Chicky finally finds one of his hometown friends in Vietnam, their reactions vary wildly. He doesn't always receive the warm welcome or carefree reunion he naively imagined, because beer, no matter what it symbolizes, cannot overpower the reality of war.
Just a little thank you. From everybody back home.
For what?
What? For this. For all this. For putting yourself on the line for us.
That goddamn beer is supposed to make it all okay.
Although, admittedly, it does get pretty close once or twice. Chicky believes that bringing his friends a taste of home will briefly restore some sense of normalcy for all of them, but the trip overall forces him to confront how naive that actually is. And this isn't to say the entire movie is like super somber. The Greatest Beer Run Ever doesn't feel like an Andrew Huberman podcast or anything. It's not lecturing you to get sober. The whole movie still remembers to have fun with the inherent absurdity of its true story premise. The real Chicky Donahue did manage to track down several of his friends, share some beers with them, and turn this ridiculous idea into a genuine adventure halfway around the world. The movie, however, just makes the thematic significance of the beer an undercurrent until the finale, and it never really detracts from the film's overriding sense of fun. Beer is awesome. Going on adventures is awesome. Having friends is awesome. The Greatest Beer Run Ever never loses sight of any of that, even though it spends a significant portion of its time forcing Chicky to grow up. And I have a feeling that all of these themes become really, really relatable by late August after a summer of road trips and weddings and lake days and music festivals and everything else everybody's got going on in the summer. By the end, summer can feel exhausting and revealing in equal measure, which is why late summertime might be a good time to throw on this movie and do some introspection. Let's hang out with Chicky and think about ourselves, huh? Oh.
Stop it. Get some help.
Stick with me here. I see The Greatest Beer Run Ever like a summertime hot dog. Is it gonna win any awards? Probably not. Is it best served on a hot day in July or August? Absolutely. Will a bunch of pretentious critics and opinion havers pretend they don't like it? Most definitely. Is it best served with an ice-cold brew? Undoubtedly. The Greatest Beer Run Ever is a nostalgic, emotional, and poignant ride that gets a massive boost when you throw it on in the same conditions where it's set. Everyone has their fall and winter go-tos. Make this movie one of your summer go-tos, like The Sandlot or Edge of 17, or I don't know, whatever the fuck you guys are watching. This is in my summer go-to, so I think you should make it in yours too. And have a drink on me while you're at it. I don't think you'll regret it.
Gotta change a few things up.
Such as?
A little less drinking. A little more thinking.
I told you, you should have hired the monkey.